Okay, so this is the live part of the demonstration, and it's going to be a little less formal than the presentation part. So on the left side of my screen, I have Watson Workspace. And Workspace is something like a persistent chat application. So you might be familiar with other products like Spark from Cisco or Slack. Um, in that respect, we're very similar because really it is just about team-based instant messaging, persistent chat. But behind Workspace is a cognitive platform, and that's really what differentiates us and as actually the really neat thing about Watson Work Services and Workspace. So, if we recall, we had a professor that built a chatbot to answer student questions. And so within Workspace, we can have individual spaces that maybe pertain to each one of our classes. And that is where the students get to ask their questions. And hopefully we have some TAs that are kind of passively monitoring and answering where appropriate. Now, what we also have in here is a chatbot. So I'm going to type in connections bot, and we'll get something back from the bot. And oh, by the way, on the right-hand side, you're going to see kind of the internals of the chatbot. So the chatbot's out there running on the public internet, and we're looking at the log files. And we'll kind of dig in and what we see in there in just a moment. But let's go back over to the left side. So the chatbot wrote something back, right? So this is the interaction style with these chatbots, and it's informational. I'm Connections bot. I'm here to answer questions, use data from IBM's Connections Cloud and social content. And then there's also a few commands that I've built into this. So this is where we get into some interesting design patterns when we write software. There is no user interface here. So I use these commands to input and change the behavior of the bot. And so there's these two cognitive levers that I can control. So one is the question confidence, which is set to 90%, 0.9. And basically that's saying, I don't want the chatbot to respond to just everything. I need it to be really certain, 90% confident that what question it gets, it's actually a question and not just someone that's maybe asking something that kind of looks like a question. Okay, so we don't want the bot to be too chatty. The other thing is the answer confidence. So that's set at 70%. And what that relates to is, well, when it gets an answer back or it wants to give an answer, I want it to be pretty certain, right? It's hard to get to really high levels of confidence without thorough training, but we can set it to something in the middle and still get answers back. So how does this work? Well, our TAs, can be answering student questions directly, or we have the chatbot kind of monitoring the background. So watch, if I type in something like hello world, what we'll see on the chatbot side, see how it's scrolling. So it just received that information. If we search through here, we'll see hello world, but suffice to say, it's getting the messages that are posted inside of the chat. Now, the other thing is, let's paste in an actual question. So does Connections Cloud support federated search? We'll hit enter there, and now we get back a lot more information. And so what it's come back with is an answer, and that's what this is. And then it's attributed to Jim Puckett, one of the product managers. We have the original question that was asked, and then we have the answer content. And so we know that this is over 70%. And what we can look at is we can even look back to where it found this answer. And we'll see this in more detail, but where it's getting this is actually from a Connections Cloud community. So there is a offering management and design community where a lot of the sales team asks the OMs questions about the product, right? And so that's a very manual process today. There's thousands and thousands of topics in here. Wouldn't it be better if we just used a bot to do that for us? And that's essentially what's going on. So it's giving back an answer. And then let's scroll through here, and I'll just kind of explain a little bit of this. So let me just get my bearings. So if you notice right here, All right. One of the things that we'll learn about is that Watson Work Services has this idea of annotations. And so one of the uh, annotations is a question. And so it picked up that when I asked, does Connections Cloud support federated search, that it was indeed a question. In fact, here's the phrase that it picked up on. It also has a confidence associated with it. So in this case, the confidence of that being a question is pretty certain. It's over 99%. So there's the first step, which is I am aware that I have a question here. Now the next step is that we need to make an answer. And so what's happening is, and we'll see, the bot is going out to a repository of information and it's searching it and it's coming back with a list of possible answers. So you can see it searching and ranking, does Connections Cloud support federated search? And then here comes back the answer. So here's a possible answer. Here's another answer at 60%. Here's another one at 59, and then the list goes on. And out of the answers that it gets back, of which there were about 10 of them, it chooses the best one, and then that's what it's sending back to the space in the form of a message. And so this is in effect exactly what our professor had done. So let's look at this in a little more detail from an architectural point of view, so we can follow that interaction and we kind of understand what components make it up.